organization that people get memberships, and I want to say they pay some type of
Mm-hmm.
membership fee. That money is pulled and decided upon in a democratic process about what is going to be done or what you're going to do with it within that community. So these members
Mm-hmm.
decide what their money does
Yep.
for them.
Yep. So, and Martin told me I have to be more succinct. So I'm going to try. All right. So, I'm going to try to do succinctly what a full process or what a full cycle would look like.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you joined Ujima, where do you live?
Brighton.
Brighton. So if you joined Ujima, you would pay a $25 annual fee.
Okay.
So that's the first step. You pay a $25 annual fee. $5 of that would go to the loan loss reserve for the fund.
Okay.
And so what that means is a pool of money that we have set aside, you know, just in case whoever we loan to don't pay back.
Mm-hmm.
But because you've invested, we've got to pay back our investors.
Mm-hmm.
So that money allows us to have some reserves,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just in case our businesses don't do well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the first thing. So $5 goes into the loan loss reserve fund.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. Our fund is not set up yet. So
Mm-hmm.
the fund is just one piece
Mm-hmm.
of Ujima, and
Okay.
it's something that a Ujima member can participate in. They don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
So when the fund is set up, what you can do as a Ujima member, if you want to, is you can invest. You
Mm-hmm.
can decide I'm gonna put my money into this fund. Right now, we're thinking maybe the minimum investment is $50.
Mm-hmm.
Not yet set. That's something Ujima members will vote on,
Mm-hmm.
and we do have to say our fund's not set up, so we're
Mm-hmm.
not taking investments.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to make that clear that we're not taking investments yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's something you can do. You can say I want to invest. If you did invest, then your investment would get pooled with a whole bunch of other people's investments into a fund. The goal that we've set over the next couple of years is raising between $2.5 and $5 million. Now, as a Ujima member, if you were a Boston resident proper, whether you invested or not, you'd get to vote on how that $2.5 to $5 million gets allocated
Mm-hmm.
to different businesses in different areas,
Oh, wow.
and you get to do that at a couple of levels.
Mm-hmm.
So as a part of the Ujima member body, you get to participate in a neighborhood assembly
Mm-hmm.
if we have one in your area. So right now we want to have up to 6 neighborhood assemblies, again focused on working class communities of color.
Mm-hmm.
So we know 3 definitely are going to happen in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan.
Mm-hmm.
We've not yet determined, for example, where the other 3 would happen. And the way we're doing that is based on who our grassroots partners are. So, for example, if you were a Roxbury resident, as a Ujima member, you could participate in a neighborhood assembly. And what would happen at that neighborhood assembly is right now we're doing something called businesses we need, businesses we love, need, and want to replace. So then that's a part of our community planning process. So I talked earlier about the construction worker who's looking around who's saying, I'd like to see some things here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our way of having people have an opportunity to participate in the conversation like that. Very specifically right now with regards to businesses.
Okay.
So you'd say, okay, in Roxbury, these are the businesses that I love. And eventually we would want to know why. These are the businesses that I think we need, and these are the businesses I'm not so hot about them. We'd like to replace them. So, for example, with replace, what's come up a lot is check cashing.
Okay.
With need, what's come up a lot is grocery.
Mm-hmm.
So what we would do is at an assembly, we compile all that data, and then at a certain point, as a Ujima member, we go through a process where we end up presenting a couple of candidates for investment. You get to vote. You get to say, okay, yes, Inside Radio, I vote for Inside Radio to receive investment from Ujima.
Shout out to Inside Radio.
Exactly. Shout out to meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond the non-negotiable community standards, there are additional community standards that we want to try to get to. Not enough just to be a business of color, because you could be exploiting people still.
True.
So we have 2 layers right now. You have to be. We want you to be a business of color, and we want you to have social impact. We want you to have a positive impact with community members. So Inside Radio is doing that in Business Alliance. Inside Radio also gets some support from our Business Alliance. So we're creating a technical assistance network.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're working with organizations like Center for Women in Enterprise, lawyers Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Economic Justice to provide additional support. So, for example, a partnership that we have with the Lawyers Committee is they have 3 seats reserved for members of our Business Alliance in their Access to Business Law class. And they also have a seat reserved in their Food Biz class. So we're providing some educational support. We're providing things like bookkeeping. So that's something a lot of businesses struggle with, either because they don't have the background or they just don't have the time. And then, they run into a situation where they're kind of behind on the bookkeeping. So that's our technical assistance network, providing those types of supports. There's also a worker services network that we'll develop later on, and that's for employees of the businesses. So that's also recognizing we're providing a lot of support for business owners, but some businesses have employees, and those employees have needs as well, and they're not always compatible with the needs of owners. And so we want to do things like think about how do we cooperatively purchase health insurance, for example, or provide health benefits. That's expensive for businesses. It's expensive for small businesses, but maybe we can think about a way to get a group of small businesses together, for example, and purchase that cooperatively to make that less expensive. How do we think about mediation? A lot of employees of small businesses are not unionized. So how do we think about ways to have their voice represented that, again, allows them to have their needs met, their voices heard, and it's not a really contentious process. So that's another piece of UGMA. So we start with community fund that's providing capital. You vote on that. You vote on the standards. The businesses join the Business Alliance. They have access to the Technical Assistance Network. The employees have access to the Worker Services Network. Another piece of UGMA is what we're calling our anchor institution strategy. And so anchor institutions are like universities, hospitals, so big institutions that have a huge presence, Northeastern, Boston University, BMC, etc. A lot of land, a lot of money. They do a lot of buying. And so another way we want to support our businesses is we want to talk to those institutions and say, hey, you should support these local businesses owned by people of color. You should give them contracts. They're good businesses. They're hiring people with records, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at the same time, we also know a lot of times there are issues with workers in those institutions. So on the other end, you should be paying a living wage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's our anchor institution strategy. And so the idea is that supports the businesses. And by supporting those businesses and really doing everything we can to make sure those businesses succeed, our investments hopefully pay off. And so as a UGMA member, I can say I've either helped to start a business or I've helped a business grow. And I've done that with quite a few businesses because we won't just be focusing on one. And through that process, I've helped to build wealth in my community. So that's something that a UGMA member can say that they've done directly. So I haven't gone to anyone else and said and asked, can you do this for me, and then kind of hope they were on my side. This is something I've done directly with my $50 or my $100 or however much I put in, or even with my membership fee, because I participated in the process of saying what should be here and voting on, what we should invest in. There's also consumer organizing strategy. So this is where our time banking and our alternative currency comes in. So the consumer organizing piece is alternative currency. I'm not sure if you've heard of Berkshires or Ithaca dollars. So Berkshires is in Western Mass, and it's actual currency. So you can, I think the way it works is, for example, if you go to the bank, so there I think about 5 banks that issue this Berkshires currency. If you go in with 99 cents, you can get a Berkshire. So you can get one like Berkshire dollar. And then there are a bunch of stores that are a part of this network that accepts Berkshires. And so you can go and you can use this as currency to shop. And so the idea is that keeps money circulating locally. And so we want to do something similar in the UGMA network. So we're thinking less paper currency, though, and it works the same with Ithaca dollars. We're thinking less paper currency, though, and we're looking at different reward systems. Like there's this thing called Credibles, where you can prepay a tab at your favorite restaurant. And so the idea behind that is that allows those restaurants to have cash flow, which is something businesses run into a lot. Is lack of cash flow. And you're going to shop there anyway. So you say, okay, I'm going to, take out $30 because, I know I'm going to muffins. That bakery has $30 that they can use to pay for whatever they need. And the idea is by prepaying, you probably end up consuming more than you would have. So you end up kind of supporting that business even more. And so we're thinking about using that with our businesses. So again, just really driving a lot of financial, technical, and I would say even like moral support to our businesses. And then the last piece with the time banking is then also thinking, I talked earlier about, what economy is. There are lots of, skills, assets, resources that we have in our communities that for one reason or another, and we know what they are, we can't command a wage for them. People aren't paying us for them. Unemployment is what it is. But it doesn't mean that it's not valuable. Right. So we've started a time banking network, and we actually launched it a few weeks ago, where we want to make things accessible like childcare and transportation. And we have people who say, I can offer cooking lessons. And so that the way it works is I offer something. So I say, okay, I'm a pretty good carpenter. I can offer some woodworking services. So I can donate an hour of woodworking services. And someone else has an offer and says, like, I can offer an hour of Spanish lessons. And if there's a match, we exchange. So that's our time banking network. And so that allows us to access then even more resources and more services. Again, going back to this notion of how do we get our needs met? So how do I get childcare? A lot of people when we did it initially said I can offer rides. How do I get transportation if I can't do any of the ride sharing services? If I can't afford cabs, fares are going up, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another piece of Ujima that a lot of people are actually really excited about. A lot of people are really excited about the time banking aspect. So as a Ujima member, you can become part of the time bank. You don't have to, but you can become part of the time bank. You can participate in an alternative currency. So you can say, I really want to make sure, that money is circulating amongst Ujima networks, and I really want to go out of our way to support Ujima businesses. Which is why I say there's a whole bunch of things for any one person to tag on to.
So, okay, I'll throw a couple words at you. Black people. Community. Investment. What those? All of those being separate. I know that with both of us kind of having a history, interest, back prior to integration, that was something that was just kind of understood.
Right.
But now it's not so much.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So that's an excellent point. So I think my so here's my thoughts on that. This is another reason why I like Ujima. So I'm gonna quote this person incorrectly, so I'm just gonna say I'm paraphrasing. But Lisa Owens, who's a ED of City Life Vida Urbana, actually, when I was at NAACP, she did a talk for us once talking about gentrification and displacement. And she said something that I thought was insightful. And someone, so, as you know, my background is Caribbean. Person that I was organizing the gentrification event with, I believe she's Trinidadian. And she, talked about how her family has this there's a family history of doing things collectively. So kind of talked about, growing up in New York and a bunch of people living in an apartment at one time until everybody could save and then kind of like buy their own property. And remembering kind of being made fun of for that and wondering why Black people in this country did not have that practice. And so Lisa's response was, that has been terrorized out of us. So to your point, before integration, this was something that was understood. It was not novel. It was not unusual. It was not revolutionary. Another part of our history is retaliation. So we see, Tulsa, Black Wall Street, blown up. Try to buy a house, somebody's burning a cross on your lawn. I'm losing the place now, but there's a place where there was the couple that moved into their house and the whole city rioted. The whole city of white people rioted. And so there's this there's this very long history of violent retaliation against Black self-sufficiency. And so one of the things I like about Ujima, and so then I would say, then there have been lessons that have been learned as a result of that retaliation and that violence, which is the way we do things is individualistically. You know, we don't work together. When I say we, I'm talking about America. I'm not just talking about Black people, because I definitely I don't like conversations that kind of talk about Black people as if like we're uniquely like flawed,
Right.
and you know, as if other groups are doing all these amazing things and we just can't figure it out. So by we, I mean America. You know, I would say we've been conditioned to say, you know, we have to move as individuals, and at most, your family's a unit, and that's it. That's who you concern yourself with. No one else. And so what I like about Ujima, I think, is giving permission to just go ahead and do what we already know to do. Because it's there. And so, as you pointed out, it's in our history. And so what I like about Ujima is saying, we're going to do it. And we're not asking for permission. We're not asking for anybody else to tell us it's okay to do things this way. We're not waiting for, you know, something to come top down and say, oh, this is how we do it now. We're doing it. So I think that'll be my response to that. And we're saying we're going to try it, and it's not going to be perfect, and it doesn't mean there aren't going to be mistakes. And it doesn't mean we're not going to mess up. But we can't keep doing things the way we're doing them now. Like, we know that for sure. So we know for sure that, you know, the before integration, you know, or when we switched up as a community, how we were doing things when we switched up didn't work out that well for us.
Right.
So we can't keep doing that, and we can't keep doing it and hoping that it's somehow magically going to work out for us now. It isn't. And so what I would say is it was working before. So the way we were doing it before was working. And that's why there was retaliation. And that's why there was violence. And, you know, we just kind of have to be courageous again and do it. And understand, you know, there might be that backlash, and there might be that retaliation. But yeah, you know, I'm thinking of your remark now about wanting to talk shit about Trump, and you know how he kind of when he was supposedly talking to Black people, we know he really wasn't, but he was supposedly talking to Black people and saying, "What do you have to lose?" I would say that now, you know. So I would say right now, you know, we don't have anything to lose, you know. So even if there's this notion of, well, if we try to do it a different way, then this is going to happen and that bad thing is going to happen. My response is, okay. You know, to me, we might as well just go ahead and try it.
Right.
Yeah.
So with the Ujima project, and I'm always thinking about this, with people who come on, how does this move toward kind of your kind of personal idea of like Black liberation?
So I think for me, this goes back to how we move through the world. And so when I think about Black liberation, I think about a sense of full control. So and what I should say when I think about Black liberation and how it connects to Ujima, I think that's what I land on. So the understanding that I can look around and I could say, I want something to happen. And then the next step for me is, and I know I can make it happen, and I know how I'm going to make it happen. And again, even though I'm saying not thinking about this individualistically. So for me, that's a connection, is moving through the world, I would say, with that certainty, and that security, which is, and so what I should say, we can look around our communities and we can say, this is the shape that we want our communities to take. and we can make it happen.
Mm. So, such a good conversation. How do people get find you to become a part of Ujima Project, learn more about it, upcoming events?
So we have a website, ujimaboston.com. We're on Facebook, Boston Ujima Project. We're on Twitter, not super active, but we're on Twitter. On Twitter, we're Ujima Boston. And we are on Instagram. We're not nearly as active as we need to be on Instagram. I can't even remember what we are on Instagram, though. But maybe if you search like Boston Ujima Project, maybe you'll find us. Maybe we're Ujima Boston. I'm not on Instagram personally.
Right.
So if you go to our website, I think we have an events tab, so that you can see what's coming up. Facebook page, we're pretty up to date on our Facebook page. You'll see stuff on there. And Twitter, you'll see stuff on there. What we have coming up is on Wednesday, the 20th, we're doing our arts and cultural organizing kickoff. So that'll be at City Life. And that is for Ujima members, but open, who are interested in a couple of things, who are interested in cultural organizing on behalf of Ujima. So one of the things that we also think is important, I think that's related to your last question, is how we create culture and how we change culture. So that, again, to your point, some of the things we're talking about, it doesn't seem like, whoa, okay, that doesn't seem possible, or it seems like there are all these barriers. So that's one thing. And the second thing is just thinking about just arts and culture in Boston in general. People who are interested in that should definitely come by. And that's going to be facilitated by Jax Gill, who's a local artist, and who's working with us on our informal arts and cultural network. And so we're working alongside each other on that. We just had a talk yesterday, why race and money are the same topic. And that was with Phil Thompson, who's a professor at MIT, urban planning, political science. That was opened by Obehi Janis, who's an actor, who's working on a play on a young Black woman trying to get funding for an anti-gentrification app. And so that was the first in a lecture series. So we're going to be doing about 4 or 5 more of those lectures. The next one will be February. We're figuring out what's happening on Kwanzaa. It won't be an in-person event. It'll be something virtual. We're figuring out what that is. But yeah, ujimaboston.com, Facebook page, Twitter, Google us. I think we'll show up if you pretty easily if you Google us. And you should be able to find us. And then my email address is Nia, N-I-A, at ujimaboston.com. So you can shoot me an email. If you can't remember Nia, you can also just send something to info at ujimaboston.com and ask us a question.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm with Nia Evans from the Ujima Project, giving us great information, giving us life, talking about Black community, our community in general, economics. It's a conversation we just really don't have enough. We steady watch the news and Twitter and 45, just being an asshole. I just had to throw it in there. I was just trying to find a way to just
put it in there.
My disdain.
Yes.
But I mean, our communities are there too.
Right.
So we follow all these politics.
Exactly.
You got to deal with us.
Yep.
So thank you for coming through. For y'all who are listening, I'm out here every Thursday. Listen to me talk about things that are important. Absolutely. My name is Martin Henson for Black Lives Matter Boston. My pronouns are he, him, his. I will see y'all next week.